The arrival Lila stood in the docking bay, her heart racing as she stared up at the massive alien space station. It looked like a floating city, with towers and bridges connecting the various sections. The stars outside shone brightly, but Ella's attention was fully on the task ahead of her. She was about to face one of the most important missions of her career. This was not just any translation job. It was a chance to make history. Her boots clanged against the cold metal floor as she walked towards the transport ship's exit. She had always dreamed of working with alien species, but now that the moment was here, a wave of anxiety washed over her. She adjusted the translator device on her belt, a small device that could convert any language into a human language. Ella had trained for years to become a top linguist, and she had never faced a challenge like this before. She turned to Captain Isaac, who was standing by her side. He was tall, with short cropped hair and a serious look on his face. He had been assigned to protect her during her mission. Ella couldn't help but feel a little out of place next to him. He was a seasoned soldier, and she was just a linguist. But they both knew how important their roles were. "Ready?" Isaac asked, his voice low and steady. Ella nodded, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. "As ready as I'll ever be." Isaac gave her a small smile before turning his attention back to the station. The air around them felt charged with anticipation. This mission could be the key to preventing an intergalactic war. The stakes were high, and Ella knew that one mistake could change everything. They walked down the corridor, the sounds of their footsteps echoing in the vast empty space. Ella couldn't help but admire the station's design. It was nothing like Earth's architecture. The walls were smooth and curved, with strange symbols glowing softly along the surface. She ran her hand along one of them, feeling a strange hum of energy. It felt like the station was alive, breathing in the depths of space. As they approached the briefing room, Isaac turned to her. "You're the best linguist we have, Ella. Don't let the pressure get to you." Ella smiled, though it didn't reach. Her eyes, "I'll do my best. But what if I fail?" Isaac's eyes softened. "You won't. I've seen you work. You're the best at what you do." Ella nodded but couldn't shake the doubt that lingered in her mind. This wasn't just about translating words. The aliens they were about to meet had a completely different culture. Their language wasn't just about words. It was about emotions, gestures, and intentions. It was like nothing Ella had studied before. She was terrified that she wouldn't be able to fully understand them, or worse, misinterpret something important. As they entered the briefing room, Ella was greeted by a group of alien officials. Their features were hard to read. Some had elongated faces while others had glowing eyes. They looked nothing like the humans she was used to working with. She swallowed nervously, adjusting the translator device again. The leader of the aliens stepped forward. His face was calm, almost serene, but his eyes glowed with an intensity that made Ella feel like she was being watched closely. He spoke in a language that was unlike anything Ella had heard before. The translator device beeped, and Ella felt the familiar hum as it processed the words. The language shifted, and Ella understood what the leader was saying. "Welcome, humans. We are honored to meet you." Ella smiled, relieved that the device was working. She spoke into the translator, her voice steady. "Thank you. It's an honor to be here." The room was quiet for a moment as the aliens exchanged looks. Ella felt a strange tension in the air, like there was something unspoken between them. She couldn't figure out what it was, but she pushed the thought away. She had a job to do. As the meeting continued, Ella took careful notes on the alien language, recording the nuances of their speech. The device she was using was cutting-edge technology, able to translate any language into human speech. But it was still far from perfect. The technology was new, and it was still prone to errors. Ella had trained with the device many times, but she couldn't help but worry that something would go wrong. Finally, the meeting came to an end, and Ella breathed a sigh of relief. She had made it through without any major issues. The aliens had seemed satisfied with the translation, and Ella had managed to avoid any embarrassing mistakes. Isaac gave her an approving nod as they left the room. "You did great," he said. Ella smiled, but it didn't last long. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The translator had worked, but she had a nagging feeling in the back of her mind that she hadn't fully understood everything. There were things she couldn't explain, emotions she couldn't quite capture with the device. As they walked back to their quarters, Ella began to doubt herself. What if the translator wasn't enough? What if the aliens were hiding something? She needed to be sure. But before she could say anything, Isaac spoke again. "Don't worry, Ella. We've got this. Tomorrow's the big day." Ella nodded, trying to shake off the fear. Tomorrow would be the real test. The fate of the galaxy rested on her shoulders, and she couldn't afford to make a mistake. But as she lay in her bed that night, the doubt gnawed at her. She knew that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't control everything. The next day would be crucial. And she couldn't afford for the translator device to fail. The critical moment, the next day, dawned with an eerie quiet in the air. Ella awoke to the hum of the space station, the faint sound of machinery working in the background. Her nerves were on edge as she prepared for what could be the most important meeting of her life. Everything was in place. The translator device was fully charged and ready to go, but the doubt still lingered in her mind. What if today would be the day it failed? What if all her training wasn't enough? As she dressed in the simple uniform provided by the station, Ella tried to shake the feeling of dread crawling at the back of her mind. She knew the stakes were high, but she didn't feel ready. She couldn't stop replaying the events from the day before. She had translated their words, but had she truly understood? She had a sinking feeling that something was off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Ella met Isaac in the hallway. He was standing by the door, arms crossed, looking calm as ever. His presence had a way of calming her nerves, but even he couldn't completely take away the unease she felt. The meeting today was unlike any she'd ever attended. The aliens were going to demonstrate their technology, and the human delegation was there to observe and learn. "You okay?" Isaac asked, noticing the tension in her shoulders. Ella nodded but didn't speak. Instead, she focused on adjusting the translator device again, her fingers trembling as she did. It was ridiculous. She had done this 100 times before, but today it felt like everything was riding on the smallest of details. She didn't know if it was the weight of the situation or the device itself, but she felt the pressure building. They entered the briefing room, where the alien leader awaited. The room was dimly lit, with strange symbols etched into the walls that glowed softly. The alien leader stood tall, his eyes studying Ella as if he could see straight through her. The tension in the air was palpable, but Ella tried to focus on the task ahead. "Good morning," the leader said in his native tongue. The translator device buzzed to life. Ella's heart skipped a beat as the familiar voice translated the words perfectly into her own language. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. "Good morning," she replied, forcing a smile. The alien leader nodded and gestured to a nearby table. "We have prepared a demonstration of our technology. It is crucial that your people understand its capabilities." Ella glanced at Isaac, who gave her a small nod. She was ready. She had to be. This was her moment. She walked up to the table and began scanning the alien equipment, taking detailed notes as she went. The device was nothing like anything humans had ever seen. It was sleek, almost organic in shape, with glowing lines running through it. She carefully examined each piece, trying to make sense of how it worked. There were no buttons, no switches. Just a smooth surface that seemed to pulse with energy. "Do you understand how it functions?" the alien leader asked, his voice calm but expectant. Ella hesitated for a moment before answering. "I believe so. It appears to work on a form of energy we've never encountered before. It could revolutionize energy storage and transmission. The alien leader's expression didn't change, but Ella could see the faintest glimmer of approval in his eyes. She had passed the first test. But the real challenge was still ahead. The alien leader motioned to a large panel on the wall. This will demonstrate the device's power. We have chosen to show you our ability to heal using this technology. Ella's heart skipped a beat. Healing? She had heard rumors of the alien race's advanced medical technology, but she didn't expect to witness it firsthand. This could be the breakthrough humanity had been waiting for. The key to curing diseases that had plagued Earth for centuries. As the panel activated, a strange energy filled the room. Ella watched in awe as a small injured creature was placed in the center of the display. The alien technology hummed as a soft blue light enveloped the creature, and within seconds, its wounds began to heal. The creature stirred, looking completely unscathed. Ella's breath caught in her throat. This was incredible. If humanity could harness this technology, it could change everything. But there was a catch. She knew that technology was dangerous if not handled properly. The potential for misuse was immense. She glanced nervously at Isaac, but he was focused on the demonstration. He was a soldier, not a scientist. And Ella could tell he didn't fully understand the implications of what he was witnessing. But she did. And the weight of that knowledge made her feel more uneasy than ever. Then, just as she turned back to the panel, something strange happened. The translator device buzzed again. Ella felt a sudden shock, a ripple of energy that made her pulse race. The words coming through the device sounded wrong. They didn't translate properly. Something was off. She froze, trying to listen more closely, but the words kept getting jumbled. The alien leader spoke again, but this time, Ella couldn't make sense of the translation. The words were distorted, twisted in a way that didn't fit the situation. Panic began to rise in her chest as the aliens exchanged confused looks. The translator had malfunctioned at the worst possible moment. She could feel her stomach twist. With fear as the room fell silent. I didn't mean to, Ella began. But the words caught in her throat. The translator buzzed again, but this time it was worse. The device seemed to be malfunctioning on a deeper level, not just misinterpreting words, but altering their meaning entirely. The alien leader's face turned from calm to something more intense. His eyes narrowed as the jumbled words came through. The translator, human misunderstanding, he said in broken translation, his tone suddenly colder. Ella's mind raced as she tried to fix the device, but it wouldn't respond. The room was growing tense, and she could feel the pressure building. The alien leader stepped closer, his gaze now sharp and suspicious. Isaac noticed the shift in atmosphere and stepped in between Ella and the alien leader. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice firm. The alien leader didn't answer. Instead, he turned to his aides, speaking in rapid-fire alien words. The translator couldn't keep up, and Ella's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to regain control of the situation. She could see the suspicion in the alien leader's eyes. This was a disaster. Ella took a deep breath and spoke again, hoping that somehow her words would fix the situation. "Please, there's been a mistake." The translator, but before she could finish, the device buzzed loudly again, and the alien leader's eyes widened. Ella's face flushed with embarrassment. The translator had failed her in the worst way possible. She had no idea how to fix it. The unexpected consequences. The room was thick with tension, and Ella felt the weight of every second stretching out. The alien leader's eyes were locked on her, no longer calm but sharp and full of suspicion. He turned to his aides, speaking in rapid, incomprehensible words. Ella could feel the panic rising in her chest as the translator device buzzed again, only making the situation worse. Each time the device failed, it seemed to push the aliens further away. She desperately tried to fix the malfunction, her fingers trembling as she fiddled with the small device. Isaac stepped forward, his body language defensive as he tried to shield her from the alien leader's gaze. His voice was steady but even. He couldn't hide the tension in his words. "Look, there's clearly been a mistake," Isaac said, his voice calm but firm. "Ella's not at fault here. The device malfunctioned. We're still working out the kinks." Ella's breath was shallow. She knew Isaac was trying to defuse the situation, but his words weren't enough to calm the rising storm. The alien leader looked at Isaac with an expression that was as unreadable as his species, but it was clear that the situation had spiraled out of control. The tension in the room seemed to thicken with every passing second. One of the alien aides stepped forward, their eyes glinting with a mix of confusion and anger. "You cannot speak to us like that. You have dishonored us." Ella's heart sank as the translation device continued to hum in failure. She had no idea what had gone wrong, but she knew that she had just crossed a line. She was a linguist, a communicator, and this was the first time her role had seemed utterly powerless. She opened her mouth to apologize, but before she could speak, the alien leader's voice cut through the air. "You misunderstand," he said. Slowly, his words halting and cold, the translation device catching only part of his speech. "This gesture is seen as a challenge. You have insulted us, and you must face the consequences." The word consequences echoed in her mind, and she felt the weight of the alien leader's gaze press on her. The room had gone deathly silent, the air so thick with tension that it felt as if it might crack open. She knew she had to fix this, but how? How could she repair something that was so far beyond her control? Isaac was the first to break the silence, his voice firm and commanding as he stepped between Ella and the alien. "Leader, we didn't mean any disrespect. We need to clear this up right now. If we can't communicate properly, we'll all be in danger." The alien leader studied Isaac for a long moment before turning to the other aides, speaking again in his native tongue. The translation buzzed, and Ella's heart skipped a beat as she realized that the alien leader was issuing an order. The aides moved quickly, and Ella barely had time to register what was happening before they grabbed her by the arms. The moment was surreal, as if everything had suddenly flipped upside down. The aliens weren't attacking, but they were certainly treating her like a prisoner. She struggled for a moment, but the alien aides held her tightly, their grip like iron. Isaac stepped forward, his face dark with concern. "What are you doing? Let her go." But the alien leader raised a hand, his voice calm but commanding. "She will face the ritual of honor. You humans will understand." Ella's heart pounded in her chest as the aides began to drag her away from Isaac. She didn't know what the ritual of honor meant, but it didn't sound like something she wanted to be part of. Her mind raced, trying to piece together the meaning of their actions. Was this a form of punishment or something more? She had to think fast. There had to be a way out of this. "Please," Ella begged, her voice shaking as she struggled against the grip of the aides. "I didn't mean any harm. The translator failed. It's a mistake." "You don't understand." The alien leader looked at her with cold, unwavering eyes. "We understand that you have dishonored us, and now you must prove your sincerity." Before Ella could respond, she was pulled into a side chamber, a cold, sterile room that looked nothing like the rest of the station. The walls were smooth and featureless, but there was a strange, foreboding energy in the air. Ella's mind raced as she was forced to kneel in the center of the room. "What is this?" she asked, her voice small as she tried to regain her composure. The alien aides said nothing but stood around her in silence, their watchful eyes studying her every movement. She had never felt more vulnerable in her life. Her thoughts swirled, and for the first time, she realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission anymore. This was something far more personal, and it felt like it was slipping out of her control. Isaac followed them into the room, his expression hardening as he stood by the doorway. "What are you going to do to her?" he asked, his voice low and tense. The alien leader stepped forward, his voice almost a whisper. "You will learn that to dishonor us has consequences. She will face the ritual. If she proves herself, we will allow the meeting to continue." Ella's chest tightened as she tried to make sense of what he meant. The ritual sounded like a form of punishment, but what kind of punishment? Was this some form of alien trial or something else entirely? The leader turned to Isaac, his gaze hard. "You will stay here. You will not interfere. This is for her to resolve." Isaac clenched his fists, but he said nothing. He was being forced to watch as Ella faced whatever this ritual would be. She could see the worry in his eyes, but there was nothing he could do to help her now. As the door shut behind him, Ella was left alone with the alien aides, her heart racing. Her mind screamed for a solution, for a way to escape, but she knew deep down that there was no simple way out. She had to face this, whatever this was. Her thoughts swirled in a haze of confusion and fear. She tried to calm herself, to breathe deeply, but the weight of the moment was too much. She had made a mistake, a huge mistake, and now it seemed like there was no going back. And yet, a small part of her couldn't help but wonder, was this truly the end, or just another challenge that would push her beyond her limits? The turning point. Ella sat on the cold floor of the chamber, her heart pounding as the silence stretched on. The alien aides stood in a perfect line around her, their eyes watching her every move. She felt trapped, vulnerable, and more alone than she had ever felt before. The ritual was about to begin, and she had no idea what to expect. Was this a punishment or a test? Was there any way out of this? She glanced over at the door, where Isaac had been left behind. She knew he was worried, but there was nothing he could do. The alien leader had made it clear that this was something she had to face alone. She could feel the weight of his gaze, even though he was no longer in the room. He had said that this was for her to resolve. But how? How could she resolve this mess? Her fingers clenched into fists as she tried to control her racing thoughts. The fear and confusion were starting to overwhelm her. She had never been in a situation like this before. She was a linguist, a translator, not someone who could handle crises like this. And yet here she was, facing a test that seemed impossible to pass. The translator had failed her, but now it seemed like the consequences were so much bigger than just a mistake with words. Alien leader's words echoed in her mind. She will face the ritual. If she proves herself, we will allow the meeting to continue. What did that even mean? How was she supposed to prove herself? Prove that she wasn't trying to insult them? Prove that the translator had failed, not her? Her thoughts were interrupted when one of the aides stepped forward, their hand extended toward her. Ella flinched, but the aide simply handed her something small, a smooth, dark stone. Ella took it hesitantly, unsure of its significance. The aide did not speak, but the meaning was clear. She was to hold the stone. With shaking hands, Ella turned it over. The stone was warm to the touch, almost alive. It seemed to pulse with energy, and she could feel its power in her palm. But it was also heavy, like it carried the weight of 1,000 years of history. Ella had no idea what it meant, but she knew it was important. She had to do something with it. The aide stepped back, and the rest of the room fell into an even deeper silence. Ella's eyes flicked around the chamber, and she saw that the walls were covered in strange symbols, symbols that she recognized from her earlier studies. They were ancient alien markings, the same ones that had been found on the alien devices. The symbols seemed to glow softly, but there was no source of light to explain the effect. The chamber was filled with an eerie, otherworldly glow that made everything feel like it was from a dream. She stood up slowly, her legs stiff from sitting on the cold floor for so long. The alien aides didn't move, but their eyes never left her. She felt the weight of their gaze, the pressure building with every second. Ella knew she had to do something, anything, to show that she wasn't a threat. but she had no idea what she was supposed to do. The stone in her hand seemed to pulse again, and suddenly she knew what she had to do. The ritual wasn't about fighting or proving her strength. It was about understanding. Understanding the culture, understanding the technology, understanding what the aliens had to offer. And it was about showing them that she respected them. Despite the mistake she had made, Ella held the stone in both hands and closed her eyes. She focused on the pulse of energy that seemed to come from it. She focused on the meaning behind the stone, on the history of the alien species that had given it to her. She thought about the moment when the translator had failed, when the misunderstanding had begun. She knew that the aliens didn't understand her, but they didn't understand her world either. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, and Ella felt a strange warmth in her chest. It was as if the stone was connecting her to the very essence of the alien species. She didn't know how, but she could feel their emotions, their intentions, their fears and hopes. The pulse of energy grew stronger, filling the room with a hum that resonated in her bones. The ritual wasn't about proving herself. It was about becoming one with the alien species, about showing them that despite the mistakes and misunderstandings, they were still connected by the same universal desire for understanding and peace. She wasn't just a translator anymore. She was the bridge between two worlds. The one who could bring them together. Ella opened her eyes, and the symbols on the walls seemed to shift, changing as if responding to her thoughts. She didn't know how she knew, but she understood that the ritual was about trust in herself, trust in the alien species, and trust in the translator device that had failed her. The connection she was forming was not just with the aliens, but with herself. She stepped forward, holding the stone out in front of her, offering it to the air in front of her. The alien leader, who had been watching from the doorway, stepped forward. His gaze was intense, but not unfriendly. He studied her for a long moment, and Ella felt her heart race in her chest. Had she done it? Had she proven herself? Slowly, the alien leader raised his hand. He took the stone from her, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to pause. The pulse of energy from the stone intensified, and Ella held her breath. The alien leader closed his eyes, feeling the energy, understanding it, just as she had. The glow in the room brightened, and Ella knew that the ritual was complete. The alien leader opened his eyes and looked at her. His expression softened. "You have understood," he said, his voice calm and steady. Ella felt a wave of relief wash over her. The ritual was over. She had done it. She had connected with them in a way that words alone never could. Isaac stepped into the room, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had witnessed everything from the doorway, but now, seeing the change in the atmosphere, he knew that something had shifted. The tension had broken, and the bond between Ella and the aliens had been forged. The alien leader nodded to Isaac. "We will continue our discussions," he said, his voice now filled with respect. "The misunderstanding has been resolved." Ella's heart soared as she realized that she had done it. She had faced the ritual, embraced the culture, and connected with the aliens in a way that no one else could have. The translator device had failed, but in the end, it had been her understanding and empathy that had saved the mission. Isaac smiled at her, his eyes filled with pride. "You did it," he said softly. Ella smiled back, her heart full. She had faced her fears, overcome the impossible, and earned the respect of an entire alien species. And in doing so, she had discovered a strength within herself that she never knew existed. The room was quieter now, the tension that had filled it for what felt like hours slowly starting to dissolve. Ella stood at the center of the chamber, her hands still trembling slightly from the intensity of what had just transpired. The alien leader stood before her, holding the stone she had given him. The stone, which had been warm in her hand just moments ago, was now cool, as if it had served its purpose and was no longer needed. Isaac moved closer, his footsteps echoing softly on the smooth metallic floor. He had been watching everything from the doorway, his face a mask of concern and confusion. But now, as the alien leader slowly placed the stone back onto the table, Isaac's expression softened. The alien leader turned to Ella, his once harsh gaze now filled with a quiet respect. "You have shown us something we did not expect, human. We did not foresee that the failure of your technology would lead to a deeper understanding." His voice, which had once sounded cold and distant, now carried a warmth Ella hadn't heard. Before Ella, still catching her breath from the emotional whirlwind, nodded. "I didn't want to insult you. The translation device. It failed me." She swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "But I never intended to dishonor you." The alien leader's eyes softened, his face relaxing as he studied her. "You have shown us your sincerity, and that is more valuable than any technology." He gestured for the aides to step back, and for the first time since entering the room, Ella felt like she could breathe again. The weight of the situation seemed to lift, just slightly, but it was enough for her to feel like she had made it through. Isaac stepped up beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder in a gesture of support. Ella looked up at him, her heart still racing from the events that had unfolded. He gave her a small, reassuring smile. The alien leader continued, his voice now filled with a kind of calm authority. "We have seen the truth behind your words, human. You are not just a translator. You are a bridge between our worlds. And this bridge is something we will not take lightly." Ella's eyes widened in surprise. She had expected anger, frustration, maybe even rejection, but this was something else entirely. The alien leader had seen beyond the failure of the device and into the heart of the situation. "We will continue our alliance," the alien leader said, his voice firm. "The misunderstanding has been resolved. You have earned our trust, and we will help you. Not just with your technology, but with your people. The future is bright, human." Ella felt a weight lifting off her chest. The fear that had gripped her heart from the moment the translator had failed was slowly being replaced with a sense of relief. The alien species, who had once seen her as nothing more than a mistake, now viewed her as a key part of their future. Isaac stepped forward, his hand still on Ella's shoulder. "We will make sure that this alliance works for both of us," he said to the alien leader, his voice full of determination. "We'll work together, for the sake of both our species." The alien leader nodded once, his expression hardening slightly. "This is only the beginning. But we are willing to trust you, human. We will see how you honor this trust." Ella felt a rush of emotion at the alien leader's words. She had done it. She had survived the ritual. She had fixed the misunderstanding. And now she was part of something far bigger than herself. This wasn't just a diplomatic victory. It was personal. She had proven to herself that she was capable of so much more than she had ever imagined. Isaac turned to her, his eyes filled with pride. "You did it, Ella. You fixed everything." She smiled back at him, a feeling of warmth spreading through her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you." Isaac chuckled softly. "Well, I was just here to make sure you didn't get into too much trouble." Ella's laugh was a small, nervous sound, but it felt good to finally relax. She had been holding her breath for so long, and now that it was over, the tension melted away. She felt as though a weight had been lifted, and for the first time since she had arrived at the station, she felt like she could breathe again. The alien leader stepped back, his gaze still fixed on Ella. "You are not like the others we have encountered. There is strength in you, something beyond your technology. Perhaps you humans have more to offer than we realized." Ella nodded slowly, feeling a sense of pride swell in her chest. She had proved herself. She had shown them that despite the mistakes, despite the failures, humanity was capable of understanding, of connection, and of trust. She looked over at Isaac, her partner in all of this. He had been there when everything seemed to be falling apart, and now he was here as she took her first step towards something new. She had made it through. And now she was ready to face whatever came next. As the meeting came to a close, the alien leader gestured for the aides to escort them back to the main area of the station. The alien species, once so foreign and intimidating, now felt less distant. Ella had not only bridged the gap between their worlds, but had also opened herself up in a way she hadn't thought possible. Isaac led the way, his voice soft as he spoke. To Ella, "You know, when this whole thing started, I didn't think it would end like this, but I'm glad it did." Ella looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Me too." They walked together, side by side, toward the next chapter of their mission. Ella was no longer just a linguist. She was part of something bigger than herself. And with Isaac by her side, she knew that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they left the chamber, the stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter. The future, for both humanity and the alien species, seemed a little clearer. There was still much work to be done, but Ella knew that this was only the beginning of a new,